somewhere in the back of an old farm. Behind the barn where no one goes anymore, there is a patch of ground that has been feeding a family for over 60 years. No one has planted it in decades. No one waters it. No one weeds it. And yet, every single spring, food rises out of that soil like it has somewhere to be. Onions, greens, roots, beans, crops that simply refuse to disappear. The man who first planted them is long gone. His tools have rusted. Them is long gone. His tools have rusted. His seed packets have crumbled to dust. But the vegetables are still there, still feeding whoever shows up with a basket. This is not a story. This is happening right now in thousands of forgotten corners across the world. And the old farmers who planted these crops did it on purpose. They knew something the modern gardener has been quietly trained to forget. The old farmers knew this, the ones with cracked hands and weathered hats, who learned to grow food before catalogs, before hybrids, before the idea that a vegetable needed a schedule. They planted certain crops once, sometimes twice, and then simply stepped back. The plants took over from there. They reseeded themselves. They spread through the soil. They came up through the snow. They survived droughts that killed everything else in the row. And here is the strange part. Most of these vegetables are still with us. They never left. They are sitting in seed packets and forgotten corners of old homesteads, waiting for someone to remember what they can do. The modern garden has forgotten them, but the land has not. What you are about to hear is a list of 15 of these vegetables, crops that the old-timers refused to give up, even when the world moved on to neat rows and irrigation timers and weekly fertilizing routines. Plants that essentially grow themselves, once you understand the ancient logic behind them. And by the end, you will see why the wisdom of the old farmer is quietly returning, just as food prices rise and people start asking the same questions our ancestors answered a long time ago. We begin with a vegetable that grew in the gardens of medieval monasteries, in the kitchen plots of Roman soldiers, and in nearly every cottage garden across old Europe. Sorrel, a leafy green with a sharp, lemony bite, used for centuries in soups, sauces, and spring tonics. The monks valued it because it appeared early, long before lettuce, when the body was hungry for something fresh and green after a long winter. Plant sorrel once, in a shaded corner with decent soil, and it will return every spring for 15, even 20 years. It does not need replanting. It does not need pampering. It simply rises, the same way it rose for the herbalists who wrote about it in their handwritten manuscripts. Modern nutrition has now confirmed what those monks suspected. Sorrel is rich in vitamin C, iron, and antioxidants, and was historically used to support digestion and cleanse the blood after the heavy meals of winter. The old farmers kept it growing because they trusted what it did. We can keep it growing for the same reason. Next comes a plant the ancient Egyptians ate, the Romans cultivated, and the peasants of the Middle Ages relied on when grain was scarce. Good King Henry. The name itself comes from old European folklore, and the plant earned it honestly. Once established, it produces edible shoots like tiny asparagus in early spring, tender leaves through summer, and seeds that can be ground or sprouted in the cooler months. One planting can feed a household for a generation. It tolerates poor soil, partial shade, and neglect. It is the kind of vegetable that does not demand attention, which is exactly why the old gardeners loved it. They understood something we have forgotten. A crop that survives without you is worth 10 crops that depend on you. Then there is Jerusalem Artichoke. Not an artichoke at all, and not from Jerusalem, but a native sunflower of North America, whose tubers fed indigenous peoples long before European settlers arrived. The settlers learned quickly. These tubers store underground all winter, multiply on their own, and produce tall, yellow flowers that brighten the late summer garden. Plant a few once, and you will have them forever. In fact, the old farmers used to warn their children that Jerusalem artichoke was almost too generous. It spreads. It persists. It returns even when you think you have dug up every last piece. In a world worried about food security, that kind of stubbornness is a gift. The tubers are rich in inulin, a natural fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria, which is now considered one of the most important things a person can eat for long-term health. The ancient diet once again turns out to be ahead of its time. Walking onions are next, and the name alone tells the story. These onions grow tall, then form small bulbs at the top of their stalks. The weight bends the stem down to the ground, where the bulbs root themselves and start a new generation. The plant literally walks across the garden year after year, planting itself wherever it lands. Old farmers use them for green onions in early spring, for small cooking bulbs in summer, and for replanting stock in autumn, all from the same patch they never had to seed again. They are nearly impossible to kill. The cold does not stop them. Heat does not stop them. Drought slows them, but rarely defeats them. A row of walking onions planted once is essentially a living onion supply for the rest of your life. The fifth on this list is one that surprises most modern gardeners. Lovage. Tall, fragrant, and tasting like a deeper, wilder version of celery. Lovage was once a staple in every European kitchen garden. It was used in soups, stews, broths, and as a digestive aid. The leaves, the stems, the seeds, and even the roots were used. And here is the part the old farmers loved. A single lovage plant, well placed, can live for decades, growing back stronger each year, reaching 6 or 7 feet tall in good soil. You plant it once, you harvest it forever. In an age when celery is shipped across continents in plastic bags, the idea of a permanent celery-flavored plant in the corner of the yard sounds almost too practical to ignore. Now we move to a vegetable that has fed humanity for at least 4,000 years. Garlic. Not the soft, watery garlic of supermarket shelves, but true hardneck garlic, the kind grown in the hills of Eastern Europe and Central Asia for countless generations. Plant cloves in autumn, leave them through the snow, and they emerge in spring with a vigor that almost feels alive. Save the largest bulbs each year for replanting, and the strain adapts to your soil, your climate, your conditions. After a few seasons, the garlic essentially becomes part of the land. The old farmers understood this. They never bought garlic. They grew their own line, passed down through families, sometimes for 100 years or more. And modern science has confirmed what every grandmother already knew. Garlic supports the immune system, the heart, and the body's defense against infection. The ancient remedy and the modern study agree. The seventh vegetable is one of the most overlooked treasures in the cool season garden. Watercress. The Greeks called it a food for soldiers and scholars, believing it sharpened the mind. It grows wild in clean streams, but it also grows beautifully in any damp corner of a garden, beside a leaky outdoor tap, or in a shallow container kept moist. Plant it once near reliable moisture and it spreads, reseeds, and returns year after year. It is one of the most nutrient-dense vegetables ever measured by modern nutritional science, ranking at the very top of leafy greens for vitamins and minerals per calorie. The old farmers gathered it from streams. The wise ones brought it home and let it root near the house, where it became a permanent crop they never had to think about again. Eighth is a root that fed entire villages through long, dark winters. Skirret. Once the most beloved root vegetable in England, prized above carrots and parsnips, skirret produces clusters of sweet, tender roots from a single plant. It is perennial. You divide it, replant a piece, and it carries on. The variety nearly disappeared in the modern era, replaced by the easier-to-machine harvest carrot. But the old farmers who kept it never let it go, and now it is being rediscovered by gardeners who want a root crop that essentially manages itself. Sweet, nutritious, cold-hardy, and self-renewing. A perfect example of a vegetable that the modern world forgot for the wrong reasons. The ninth on this list is a green that grows so reliably it is sometimes treated as a weed, which is a mistake the old farmers never made. Purslane. Succulent, lemony, slightly salty, and one of the highest plant sources of omega-3 fatty acids on Earth. Ancient peoples from Persia to Mexico to the Mediterranean cultivated it deliberately. It self-seeds with such enthusiasm that one season of growth gives you years of return. It tolerates heat, drought, poor soil, and almost total neglect. In the dry summers when other greens collapse, purslane thrives. The old farmers ate it fresh, pickled it, and dried it for winter. Today, nutritionists list it among the most beneficial wild greens in the world. The plant has not changed, only our memory of it has. 10th is a vegetable that quietly hides in old farmsteads under a name most people no longer recognize. Sea Kale, a tough, salt-tolerant perennial cabbage relative whose tender spring shoots taste like a refined cross between asparagus and broccoli. Plant it once in deep, loose soil and it can produce for 20 years. The Victorians considered it a delicacy. The coastal villagers of Old Britain harvested it from wild beaches for centuries before that. It survives wind, salt, sand, and frost. It needs almost nothing from you, and it returns every spring, dependable as the tide. A perfect example of why the old farmers kept certain crops in the corners of their gardens. Once established, they were a kind of insurance. The 11th vegetable is one whose seeds were carried in the pockets of immigrants across oceans. Egyptian spinach, also called Molokhia, a heat-loving leafy green that thrives in hot summers when conventional spinach bolts and dies. It has fed civilizations along the Nile for thousands of years. In the right climate, it self-seeds with ease, returning each summer without intervention. It is rich in calcium, iron, and protein, and has been used both as food and as a traditional remedy for fatigue. The old farmers in warmer regions kept it growing because it gave them greens in the very months when the garden seemed to have given up, while modern gardeners struggle with bolted lettuce in July. Those who know Molokhia simply walk outside and harvest a meal. Now we reach the 12th, a vegetable so ancient it appears in the records of nearly every early agricultural civilization. Fava beans. Also known as broad beans, the Romans planted them by the field. The Egyptians stored them in tombs. The medieval European peasants relied on them as a winter staple. Plant them in autumn or early spring, and they not only feed you, they feed the soil. Fava beans pull nitrogen from the air and lock it into the ground, leaving the earth richer than they found it. Save a handful of dried beans each year, and you have your seed for the next planting, forever. The old farmers understood the deep logic of a crop that improves the land while feeding the family. We are only now relearning what they always knew about soil health. The 13th is a leafy green so resilient that the old farmers used to joke it could survive a war. Perpetual spinach, a form of leaf beet closely related to chard. Plant it once, and it produces tender greens for 2 full years from a single sowing, often surviving mild winters and bursting back with no effort on your part. It does not bolt easily. It does not bitter quickly. It tolerates cold, heat, and dry spells that would destroy real spinach. In the kitchen gardens of old Europe, it was the green you could always count on, the one that fed the family in the long stretch between spring lettuces and autumn kale. A quiet, dependable plant that reflects exactly the kind of self-sufficiency the old farmers prized above novelty. The 14th vegetable is a humble but extraordinary one. Multiplier onions, sometimes called potato onions. Unlike regular onions grown from seed each year, these onions grow as a cluster of bulbs from a single planted bulb. You harvest most of them, save a few, replant them, and the cycle continues indefinitely. Some families in rural Europe and Appalachia have been growing the same line of multiplier onions for over 100 years, never once buying onion seed or sets. Think about that. A century of onions, all from a single original handful. This is the kind of crop the old farmers built their gardens around. Not the flashy ones, the faithful ones. The ones that paid back the soil, the season, and the labor, year after silent year. And we arrive at the 15th. The one that ties the whole list together, because it is perhaps the oldest cultivated leafy green in human history. I'm Tim's, and called mountain spinach, grown in the gardens of ancient Greece, mentioned in Roman agricultural texts, painted on the walls of medieval herbals. It comes in shades of green, red, and deep purple. It self-seeds so generously that one planting produces a small forest of seedlings the following spring. It tolerates dry soil, salty soil, and poor soil. It grows tall and produces leaves all summer long, especially in the hot months when other greens fade. The old farmers loved Orach because it asked for nothing, returned every year, and offered both food and beauty in the same plant. In a way, Orach is the spirit of this entire list. A plant that does not need us, but generously feeds us anyway. Now stand back and look at what these 15 vegetables have in common. None of them require a greenhouse. None of them need expensive fertilizers. None of them depend on annual seed purchases from a catalog. They are perennial, self-seeding, or nearly self-managing. They were chosen over centuries by people who could not afford failure. People whose survival depended on knowing which plants would come back no matter the weather. People who learned to garden the way nature actually behaves, not the way a glossy seed packet suggests. The old farmers were not romantic about this. They were practical. They knew that a vegetable that requires constant care is a vegetable that will betray you in a hard year. They knew that resilience is more valuable than yield. They knew that the strongest food system is not the one with the best gadgets, but the one with the deepest roots. And so they kept these crops alive, sometimes against the advice of agricultural extension agents, sometimes against the trends of their neighbors, sometimes simply out of stubborn loyalty to what their grandparents had planted. What is remarkable is that science is now catching up to their instincts. Nutritionists confirm that wild and ancient greens like Purslane, Watercress, Sorrel, and Orach often outperform modern hybrids in vitamins, minerals, and beneficial compounds. soil researchers confirm that perennial vegetables build healthier soil than annual tilled crops. Climate scientists note that resilient, self-seeding plants are exactly what gardens will need in an era of unpredictable weather. The old farmer, the one many people once dismissed as old-fashioned, turns out to have been a quiet pioneer of what we now call sustainable agriculture. There is also something deeper at work here. Beyond science, there is a feeling that comes from walking out into the garden in early spring and finding food already rising from the ground. Food you did not plant this year. Food that remembered to return on its own. It is a feeling our ancestors knew well, and it is one many of us have never experienced. It quietly changes how a person sees the land. The garden stops being a project and starts being a relationship. A long, patient, generous relationship with a piece of earth that gives back more than you put in. If you are thinking about which of these to start with, the old farmers would likely tell you to start small and start with what fits your land. In cool, damp regions, Sorrel, Watercress, Lovage, Sea Kale, and Skirret will thrive. In hot summers, Molokhia, Purslane, and Jerusalem Artichoke will reward you. In nearly any climate, walking onions, multiplier onions, garlic, fava beans, perpetual spinach, good King Henry, and Orach will find a way to belong. Plant a few, let them settle. Save seeds and bulbs from the strongest plants each year. Within 3 to 5 seasons, you will have a garden that looks ordinary but behaves like an heirloom. A living archive of food that does not depend on supply chains, store shelves, or seasonal fashion. A small word of care. Some of these plants, like Jerusalem Artichoke and walking onions, can spread enthusiastically, so choose their location with that in mind. Others, like sorrel and rhubarb's leafy cousins, contain natural compounds best enjoyed in moderation, the way the old cooks always did. Identify any new plant carefully before eating it, especially when foraging wild relatives. The old wisdom was never reckless, it was respectful. The land gives generously, but it asks for attention in return. And so we come back to the question hidden inside this whole list. Why did the old farmers refuse to stop growing these vegetables? Even as the modern world filled with shortcuts and shipped-in produce, the answer, when you really listen for it, is simple. They were not just growing food. They were growing uncertainty. They were growing the kind of independence that does not announce itself, but quietly carries a family through the years, through good seasons and bad ones, through cheap times and expensive ones, through stable years and the kind of years no one can predict. That certainty is still available. The seeds still exist. The plants still grow. The knowledge has not been lost, only set aside, waiting to be picked up again by people willing to listen to a slower, older voice, a voice that says, plant once, tend gently, and trust the land to do most of the work. The old farmers heard that voice clearly. The garden is patient enough to teach it again, to anyone who steps outside and starts. If this list reminded you of something a grandparent used to grow, or sparked an idea for a corner of your own garden, share it in the comments below. Tell us which of these 15 vegetables you have grown, which ones you want to try, and which old varieties have been quietly passed down in your family. And if you find value in this kind of slow, grounded, ancestral knowledge, consider subscribing so the next chapter of forgotten wisdom finds its way to you when it is ready. The seeds of the past are still alive. All they need is someone willing to plant them.